After Episode 1's inexplicable foray into global Olympian swimming, Galadriel is seen with full-action man-swimmer features.
Ready for anything. Action-Man, the greatest hero of them all. You're all washed up, X.
Meanwhile, back to the Half-Woods. They decide they are going to assume responsibility for the chap who literally fell out of the sky. Despite the show setting up that they owe their survival to keeping away from the other races, and even dress in attire that make the Riddlers seem to shop in Savile Row, they decide to involve themselves with a potentially dangerous stranger who could bring untold ruin to their clan. This is only highlighted by the clearly powerful abilities he demonstrates to them. The odd couple return to view and find the remains of a destroyed village. There, within the ruins, a gaping hole in the ground grabs Arondir's attention. The quality of script writing that ensues does not require explanation as to the overall quality of the show.
Go. Warn your people.
You're not coming with me.
I must follow the passage the other direction.
You don't know what's down there.
That is the reason I must go.
We are then brought back to Elrond, who is with Celebrimbor. Celebrimbor in appearance seems much older than Elrond. Those who are familiar with the lore will realize the absurdity of this. Celebrimbor's great-grandfather was Finwë, who was also Galadriel's grandfather. It is not too much of a stretch to suggest that Charles Edwards would be old enough to be Morfydd Clark's father.
It is rather old.
The scene baits with tidbits such as Feanor's hammer. To put things into perspective, Feanor was a craftsman, gemsmith and warrior, the maker of the Silmarils and inventor of the Tengwar script. He was also the creator of the Balantiri. He is considered the greatest craftsman in all of Middle-earth's history. Celebrimbor, who is Feanor's grandson, follows in that path of craftsmanship and will later famously collaborate with the dwarves to create the Doors of Durin, also known as the Hollin Gate. Why is any of this important? The show, in its typical oafish clumsiness, tasks the feckless Elrond with meeting and gaining the trust of dwarves for Celebrimbor's project. This is insulting. It completely ignores the important dynamic of the friendship of Celebrimbor and Narvi. This is significant given the centuries of animosity between elves and dwarves, and how this occurred during an age when the dwarves still retained their mighty kingdom of Khazad-dûm. We meet Prince Durin, who is laughably described as being a friend of Elrond's. Elrond invokes an ancient rite when he appears to have failed in his mission. The dwarves are secretive. Their customs and rituals are kept to themselves. They even have secret names that are not written on their tombs. Why would they reveal a ritual to an outsider, and an elf at that? This is so insultingly inserted, but worse is how it is meaningless, as Elrond is granted the privilege of staying anyway, despite losing the challenge, which would mean banishment. We also meet his wife, Disa. This is the same Disa who the showrunners pushed as being a paragon of the new dynamic. That is, a dynamic of butchering Tolkien's established lore with inept, targeted political messaging. The first dwarf of colour on screen. To be clear, the name is an unsubtle variation of Dis, the only named female dwarf that Tolkien described. I suppose I should be clear about my peeves when it involves the dwarves. They are my favourite race that Tolkien created, and I appreciate the intricacies that Tolkien wrote which permeates their history and culture. I know that dwarves can be comical and stereotyped and argumentative.
Bomber!
They're suspicious and secretive with the worst Scottish accents you can possibly imagine. But they are also brave and kind and loyal to a fault. I've grown very fond of them, and I would present them accurately if I can. Obviously, not tiring because of how incredible she is, Galadriel can perceive a raft in the distance. The survivors have clung together after a worm attacked their ship. Perhaps this is pedantic, but worms in Middle-earth refer to dragons, such as Smaug, the worm of dread, and particularly the wingless variety, such as longworms, briefly mentioned in the appendices. Interestingly, sea serpents or fish dragons were mentioned in the Lost Road and other writings as linguiloque. Perhaps I'm incorrect here, but what I find notable is that this seems to be beyond the remit of the material that the show can work with, even beyond the appendices. A minor niggle, perhaps, but something that bothered me. Be that as it may, this sea serpent attacks the survivors again. All that remains is Galadriel, naturally, and a devilishly handsome chap who absolutely cannot be Sauron, and whom the show will take great pains to tell the audience that they are subverting their expectations.